discuss the surprising and interesting takeaways from week 7 of the NFL season. I'm gonna tell you why Jalen Hurts deserves to be in the conversation for one of the top 3 NFL quarterbacks. I'm also gonna tell you how the Philadelphia Eagles were able to easily dominate the game against one of the best teams in the AFC, and in some cases, the favorite to win the AFC title. After that, we're going to talk about New England Patriots and the New York Yankees and how their stubbornness continues to hold them back regardless of their win against the Buffalo Bills, and how that game taught us more about Buffalo than anything new about New England. Let's jump into it. There is an argument that Jalen Hurts could be the top quarterback in the NFL. Hear me out before you start freaking out and getting in my comments talking crazy. There is a trait that Jalen Hurts has that almost no other quarterback in the league has, and that is his unflappability. You can't tell if Jalen Hurts just threw multiple touchdowns in the Super Bowl or if he threw multiple interceptions to the Miami Dolphins on a Sunday night primetime game. The dude is so incredibly calm. He is so incredibly non-reactive to the point that I've never really seen it out of another quarterback. No disrespect to Tom Brady or Patrick Mahomes, but you will see those dudes be pretty rattled by an injury or some drop passes or having to go into the locker room to get an MRI. I mean, they're going to be shouting on the sideline, letting the rest of the team and their coaches know that they're not happy with the way things are going. But you almost never see that from Jalen. And that's what I think makes him special. When they're showing the replays from his Alabama years as a passer, he was one of the more limited quarterbacks that I've seen play for Alabama in the last decade. It is incredible to see how much he's developed as a passer. And I thought he had almost no NFL future. But this dude has somehow turned himself into a stud both on and off the field. Even when Tua replaced him in the national championship game, he was a consummate professional. Jalen's decision making, his maturity, his calmness, his consistency. Listen, there's a lot of value in being able to know what version of a quarterback you're getting every single week. And to be quite honest, there's really not a ton of guys, with the exception of maybe Lamar Jackson, whose game is going to look the exact same. There is a ton of value in repeatability, comfortability, and security. And that's what Jalen gives you on a day-to-day basis. Although that Herbert and Mahomes and Josh Allen might be better passers of the football, it's the whole package. And Jalen is perhaps the most emotionally mature, and he's got Hall of Fame dudes on that offensive lineman who have been in the league since he was a kid in high school, and he walks in and there's not a question of his judgment, his leadership, or what he's able to do on the field. For those folks who think that he's overpaid or think that he's only going to have a few more good years and he's a reckless power runner, perspective is surely falling by the wayside. Every week, this dude continues to put on a clinic and a masterclass on how to be a professional quarterback in this league, and I love every second of it. Now on to the game. There is no doubt that the Eagles' major differentiator, their ability to comfortably control the time of possession. And they did it last night. They sucked the air out of the Dolphins on both sides of the ball by just completely dominating. So there's an argument to be made that power in football, regardless of how ugly it looks, is always going to dominate finesse. And we saw that last night. I thought that Miami got away from the run way too early in the game, and they were trying to match big play for big play. And we know that McDaniel/Shanahan offense isn't going to be effective unless the run is. That offense goes as the run goes. And so to see them kind of bail on it and not double down on it because of the strength and power of that defensive line, they were able to comfortably drop 2 safeties in the back to really eliminate the big plays that you see so much from Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. Yes, of course, Tyreek's going to get his touches, and he did have that one big play over the top. But for the most part, the Eagles shut that down, and Miami's got to get healthy on their offensive line, because if they can't have Raheem Mostert making plays, they're going to be extremely limited in the race for the AFC. While I have you here, my opinion on the brotherly shove, as we're calling it, they're basically the only team that can do this throughout the league. There is no other team that has consistently been able to replicate it. And it also doesn't feel like there's a ton of shoving involved. Like when they talk about the competition committee coming in and making a rule change, what are they going to ban? The QB sneak? No, that's not going to happen. What might happen is they might say, okay, Dallas Goedert's not going to be able to push Jalen Hurts. For the most part, when you look at the play, it's mostly Jalen Hurts and those dudes who are getting low to the ground like Kelsey, who are basically almost on the floor, and your quarterback squats over 600 pounds. Dallas Goedert isn't making a ton of impact on that play in the way that it's been advertised. So I just hope that they don't overthink this, because there's only one team in the league that's dominating at it. So listen, I'm sitting on the couch yesterday watching the New England Patriots, and I think to myself, they remind me exactly of the New York Yankees. It feels like the similarities are uncanny. They've got the same dude running personnel for the last 20 or so years, refuses to pivot onto today's relevant skill set. They romanticize players who are far past their prime, overinvest in those players, right? I mean, the New York Yankees once brought in Ichiro after he was about 5 to 7 years past his best years. You see that? They're doing it with Zeke. The Yankees did that with Josh Donaldson. And so right now, they have no ability to find talent that has utility in this day and age. They somehow have these big receivers who aren't great at high pointing the ball. They have receivers who can't separate on their own. They have a running back who even Dallas kicked to the curb, and they almost never get rid of the players that they draft. This is why I say that we've learned a lot more about the Buffalo Bills from this game than we ever will with the Patriots. The Patriots are not going to change until they get somebody else who is going to control personnel. They are what they are. I'm looking at the rest of their schedule. There's a chance they might be able to rattle, a win or two off, but it wasn't like you watched that game and thought, oh, they're gonna catch steam and they're gonna keep rolling. That was not the case whatsoever. What this tells us about the Bills is that it's the same concerns that I've had since the offseason. You don't know which team is gonna show up, and if Josh Allen isn't locked in, you're absolutely screwed. That wasn't the case yesterday, but with the Bills, it just solidifies everything that has continued to plague them, especially in the last year or so. These dudes show up to the field like they've already won a Super Bowl, like they're so good and they just can't wait to get back to the playoffs and then blow it inevitably. So it's like, they don't get a pass from me. They shouldn't get a pass from anybody. They haven't done anything in this league. The overtime rules have been changed specifically for them, and I think they were somewhat like 0-4 in the playoffs. We now know that Buffalo isn't a real contender. Divisional games are always close. There's about one game a year where Bill Belichick just straight up outcoaches Sean McDermott every year, and so that's what happened yesterday. I don't think we should overreact on the Patriots side, and I absolutely think that we need to react on the Buffalo Bills side, because right now, and for the foreseeable future, they simply are not going to be able to get it done. I don't know what they need in order to figure out what's going to light a fire up under them, but for right now, they've got no answers, and I really don't know what is the magical button to press in order to make them a legitimate contender, because right now, they're simply just not that. And the last thing I think that we learned is that the Detroit Lions may be one of the better teams in the NFC, but when it comes to going face to face in someone else's building and a top 10 contender in the AFC, they almost didn't compare. They didn't show up. It was a massive coaching disadvantage between Harbaugh and Dan Campbell. And I think that pretty much exposes what might happen when they get out-coached by either Shanahan or by the strength of the roster and the physicality of the Eagles. I think ultimately it just shows you that the AFC really is the superior conference, because you've got a mid-level team in the Baltimore Ravens going up one of the top 2 or 3 teams in the NFC and just completely routing them. I think we should just continue to keep an eye on it. Appreciate you stopping by. We're gonna be putting out a lot more short content in the next few days, so keep an eye out for that. We're gonna be discussing how in the world Mike Evans is still not being widely considered a Hall of Famer, as well as we're gonna be chatting about what the hell is going on with James Harden again, and how it compares to insufferable Kyrie Irving's behavior, and how James might even be worse. See you next time.